Good evening, I'm Danny McCue of Anton Community Newspapers, and this is Insight Nassau. During this week's program, we're going to be discussing the state of public education on Long Island, and joining me are a distinguished panel of guests, Dr. Rudolph H. Clark, a former board president of the Westbury Schools, Michael Coleman Lowndes, host of the morning program on 1240 WGBV, and Dr. Robert D. Pinckney, superintendent of the Westbury School District. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Michael, you talk to more Long Islanders on a daily basis than probably any of us in a given month. What are you hearing about public education on Long Island?
Probably the thing that stands out foremost in my mind is inequity. Quite simply, we're talking about an island that has more wealth than many communities throughout the nation. And despite that, despite what is probably a very broad and oftentimes very wealthy tax base, we have schools that run a range that from the very high, and I'm sure we can all think of school districts that have the facility and the curricular and the equipment to do a fantastic job, while at the other end of the spectrum, we have schools that are just barely surviving. And I don't understand how we can allow that type of thing to go on as we have been doing now for decades.
Now, when you talk about the people that you're hearing from, is it educators? Is it, the man and woman on the street? I mean, who has these complaints, and are they putting forward any recommendations or solutions?
Well, I think you'll hear this from everyone. I think you'll hear this from faculty to parents to students. And as far as the recommendations are concerned, it's the same old song. People immediately start talking about tax base not being there, and as such, the money's not there to support the school, and then the conversation wanders off from there. No one really comes up with any solutions as to how do we provide equity for those schools that are hurting. And there are many school districts on the island, and it's an embarrassment to the island as a whole. This should never be happening like that. This should not be the case at all.
Now, Dr. Pinckney, where does the problem start? Does it start in the curriculum sector? Does it start in the tax-based sector? Help us focus in a little bit on where some of that inequity is coming from.
Well, I think that one of the problems is clearly the tax base, that communities, Westbury happen to be one of those communities, that feels that its taxes are astronomical and therefore are unwilling to continue to support the educational process and the budget. And we are suffering as a result of that. The state will tell you, for example, that we're supposed to receive in round numbers $9 million in state aid, however crazy and ill-equipped the formula is, but we only receive 5 because of a cap. Right. And the cap is the notion that there's only so much money in the treasury of the state that they can afford to give the school district, but they know that we need $4 million more that belongs to us, yet we have to ask the taxpayers of the community to make up that difference in order for us to provide the kids with a basic educational program. We have no extras. We are just trying to meet the needs of the current students. We'd like to have more opportunities, but funds aren't available for us to do so. So it's a tax base. The curriculum is statewide, and therefore we can educate our children. Our children go to MIT and Harvard like other institutions, but we still have other kinds of problems with our diversity in our population and the economic difference that they bring to us.
Dr. Clark, Westbury is, over the past 20 years, has been a changing school district. You were both a board member and the school board president. Give me a sense of what has happened, particularly in the Westbury school system.
Okay, what's happened in Westbury, in my judgment, are several factors that have negatively impacted students' performances. I think what's paramount among those factors is school districts are no longer accountable, at least in Westbury. When I moved to Westbury, there was a significant Jewish population in Westbury. Westbury was usually in the first 5 school districts in the county. Subsequent to the Jewish population moving and the ethnic and racial quality character of the community changing, there's been a diminishing performance in terms of the results that we're getting out of our students. Now how do you want to rationalize that? I asked the question about 20 years ago from the Director of Guidance in Westbury, when the scores first started going down. We talk in terms of bell-shaped curve, norm reference tests, etc. And naively, that person indicated that what had happened was the change in the ethnic composition of Westbury had produced a less competent student, whatever that means. So I said, are you suggesting naively that ethnicity determines school performance? He said, well, not exactly. I said, okay, now let's be ethnic all the way about this situation. Let's plot the same bell-shaped curve when the Jewish population moved into the community. And what happened to the scores? They tended to escalate. All right, what are we talking about? We're talking about expectations. We're talking about community involvement. We're talking about a reciprocity of needs in terms of what are the expectations of our children from the community. I subscribe to the proposition that subsequent to post-World War II, when we had all of these dynamic changes in philosophy and direction of education, we have seen education now approach a situation where it's literally designed to fail. And what do I mean by that? Bob and Michael mentioned more money, tax base, etc. During the 60s and 70s, and Bob will attest to that, billions and billions of dollars were poured into school districts in terms of a variety of compensatory programs that were the product of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of the mid-1960s. Now, the caveat in all of that money was, in order to get it, you had to have a failing student population. So what were you doing? You were rewarding failure. The more students reading below minimum competency levels, the more students performing below minimum competency levels in mathematics, you got more money. If you improved the performances of the students, you lost the money, you lost teachers, you lost staff, etc.
Now, Dr.